Welcome to our cell communication video. It's Hermela, Hase, and Jordanos, and we're bringing you elephants, dolphins, mimosas, and Homo sapiens. Each living organism undergoes cell signaling in some type of way, and we're here to show you how. Here are the basics. There are two broad types of signaling, local and long distance. In local signaling, more specific terms would be paracrine, sympathetic, or autocrine signaling, while for long distance signaling, endocrine signaling is used. The process of transduction is when the receptor transduces or converts a molecular signal into a cell response. Signal transduction pathways leads to many responses, either in the cytoplasm or nucleus. Now let's get to the specifics.
Why is cancer rare within elephants? Elephants contain the genes P53 and LIF6. The gene P53 hunts for cells with inaccurate DNA, and then the gene LIF6 destroys the mutated cells before they convert into a tumor. The gene P53 is alerted through stress signals. Some stress signals can include UV damage, nutrients deprivation, and just a regular infection. Then, through the process of apoptosis, the gene LIF6 releases a protein that latches onto the mitochondria, killing the mutated cell. Once the cell is dead, the gene P53 is transduced through an MDM2 complex. Researchers have yet to find out how the gene LIF6 is transduced, considering that the gene had just reappeared within elephants after years of disappearance. Brain damage within an elephant might cause a malfunction with how the stress signals are produced and how the gene P53 can receive those signals. So in this picture you can see how the gene P53 notifies the gene LIF6 and how through the process of apoptosis, the gene LIF6 kills the cell through the mitochondria.
Mimosa pudica, also known as the sensitive plant, closes their leaves in response to touch or sudden stress. After researchers have been observing these plants being exposed to stressful situations, they discovered these plants have learned. These plants have stopped closing their leaves, which takes a precious amount of their energy in response to them being alarmed, and a month later haven't been bothered to close them after learning from their previous situation. They use chemicals called hormones to undergo the long-distance signaling. Long-distance signaling plays a crucial role in plant adaptation and subsequent survival to severe environmental conditions. Once activated, the receptor converts a molecular signal into a cell response. This transduction sometimes occurs in a single step, but more often it requires a sequence of changes in a series of different molecules, which is the signal transduction pathway. In signal transduction pathways, there are three steps. First, reception, where the signal molecule binds the receptor. Then signal transduction, which is where the chemical signal results in a series of enzyme activations. Finally, the response, which is the resulting cellular responses. Ultimately, signal transduction pathways leads to a multitude of responses either in the cytoplasm or the nucleus. It regulates protein synthesis by turning specific genes on or off. It produces a metabolic response in which metabolic enzymes in the cell become more or less active. Something that may cause this pathway to not function properly is gap function. Gap functions directly connect the cytoplasm of two cells, which allows various molecules from ions and electrical impulses to directly pass through a regulated gate between cells.
Next up, we have Homo sapiens. Yes, one of the first ones were Ethiopians. It's basically a term for early modern humans, in case any of you guys had any confusions. They evolved 200,000 and 300,000 years ago. That's just a little extra fact, just so you know. Their cells still undergo cell signaling, where cells are interacting and mingling. Long-distance signaling is the name, but for plants and animals, it's not the same. Homo sapiens use endocrine signaling from the endocrine system, where endocrine glands release hormones, acting like a translator, reaching target organs and structures of the cell. The nucleus, mitochondria, and endoplasmic reticulum are some that excel. You can't forget about centroid cilia or lysosomes, or Golgi apparatus, follicles, and ribosomes. The cell organelles help maintain homeostasis to make sure the cell isn't just too spacious. Negative feedback loops contribute to homeostasis as well, while positive feedback loops do the opposite and rebel. The body is pushed away from equilibrium by them and might cause reactions and temperatures to be overwhelmed. Anyways, back to our lovely Homo sapiens. Testosterone functions well with them, not acting like Mavians. If you didn't know, testosterone is a primary sex hormone that changes how men appear and perform. The process of transduction actually begins with testosterone interacting with the intercellular receptor and not on their own. Testosterone first passes through the plasma membrane, binding to receptor protein in the cytoplasm and activating it, showing their will train. Then testosterone enters the nucleus, binding to specific genes. Wow, so studious. The binded protein acts as a transcription factor, stimulating the transcription of the gene into mRNA. Wow, a benefactor. Through transcription, many hydrogen bonds formed. Other bonds are called ionic, polar covalent, non-polar covalent, and more. Van der Waals interactions were also a bond taught previously, where a weak force of attraction between neutral molecules collide irresistibly. So finally, the mRNA is translated into a specific protein, and that's the response that our bodies need. Proteins function very effectively in our body, catalyzing reactions, transporting materials, and transmitting messages for everybody. It may seem at this point that everything is actually flowing pretty smoothly, but there are things that may actually cause this pathway to not function properly. Examples would be injuries, where blood supply is interrupted to the testosterone and there is no deliveries. Another would be medications such as opioids that use a hormone instead to do other functions with those steroids, such as prostate cancer, leaving more jobs for the other organelles to do a disaster.
To summarize, 5 things you need to know about signal transduction pathways are: they are characterized by a signal, a transduction, and a response. They are highly specific and regulated. One signal molecule can cause a cascade effect, releasing thousands of molecules inside a cell. They regulate cellular activity, altering gene expression, protein activity, or protein synthesis. And lastly, these pathways evolved millions of years ago in a common ancestor.